All right, so today we're going to look at some of our fruits. Not all of them, but as many as I could possibly squeeze into, let's say, an almost 10-minute session. So let's start off with our fleshy fruits. We'll look at berries, aggregate fruits, and multiple fruits. And then we'll move on to our dry. So the first of our berries would be our tomato. And so you can see this tomato has still got our calyx. It's still got our sepals. There's actually 6 on this tomato, which is a little bit unusual, but you can see them all nice and clearly. And if we just cut into it, we can actually see, unfortunately, 3 chambers. So it doesn't quite make sense because we think there should be 4s or 5s. These could be double here. But at some stage, this was a syncarpous gynoecium of, let's say, 5 carpels. So make these little indentations here, another 2. So these fleshy areas here would have been our placenta. These chambers, each one of those would have been our ovaries, all right? And of course your seeds are what were your ovules before it was fertilized. So if we look at an orange, that's also a berry. Believe it or not, berry is soft, fleshy, lots of seeds. So an orange would have been a syncarpous gynoecium of 10 carpels. Okay, so everyone sees that there's 10 little segments in the orange. Okay, so if we look at a banana, yes, even a banana is a berry. Soft, all three layers are edible, and lots of seeds. So once that gets a little bit brown, we'll actually see the seeds more clearly. And yes, you can eat the skin of the banana. So what about a pawpaw? Now this pawpaw was probably from maybe 2 carpels. It's difficult to recognize, but you can see that you've got 3 very soft layers and everything is edible. So even the seeds, you've got lots of little seeds which would have been ovules, and the little fleshy part attached to them would have been the funicle or the stalk that was attached to the placenta. And that inner skin would have been our placenta. So think about the inner lining of your passion fruit when you eat those. So let's have a look at even your chilies, sorry. So even a chili is a berry, botanically. So there's a beautiful little collection of bird's eye chilies that someone gave me. Your pomegranate will not really fit exactly into this classification. So pomegranate is like in a little world of its own. So you think it could be a berry because it's got lots of little fleshy seeds, but it actually also has some pom characteristics. Pom characteristics means you've still got part of the flowering tube intact. And if I just close that up, you can see you've still got the remnants of your calyx there. Just as with an apple, which is a pom. So an apple, you've got the remnants of your calyx, and the top part, if I just turn that over like that, that would have been your stigma, okay? So let's move on to some other fruits, and these here are some blackberries that I got the other day. They are aggregate fruits. Now an aggregate fruit is a collection of individual fruits. In this case, they are drupes. So a drupe is a fruit where you have a hard, woody layer and a fleshy layer, just like our avocado. So if you like, the lumps on the blackberry are like the equivalent of a mini avocado, if that makes sense. And so your Rosaceae family, you will find there are a lot of aggregate fruits. So they are basically from those still one flower. If we look at something like our pineapple, this is different. This is not from one flower. This is actually from an inflorescence. So at some stage, all of the flowers on our inflorescence coalesced to form this fruit. So under here, all of these little segments here, these little spiky segments, they would have been bracts, okay? And your stalk of your pineapple, so the center, that would have been the stem of our inflorescence. Okay, so now you might remember the other day when I did inflorescences, I had this most unusual fruit on the Stephanotis vine. Now apparently it's hard for them to actually get a fruit, but I want you to try and think about what this could be. We have flesh, but we have lots of little seed capsules. And this actually leads us into our dry fruits. So technically this can be classified as a dry fruit, which at the moment it's still green, yes, but they will dry out. So let's have a look at some other dry fruits. And the first one, which sort of fits in with that, you'll also remember from inflorescences, are these little capsules. So you'll remember that this was a cymose umbel inflorescence, and these little tiny little chambers here, these are all capsules. Okay, we have lots of tiny seeds inside of those that make a nice rustling noise. If we're looking at whether they are dehiscent or indehiscent, they would be dehiscent because they freely release the seed. Remember, the job of your fruit is just to carry the seed. So something like this is a follicle, which is also dehiscent. And you can see that it's opened nice and clearly on the one side, and it's quite thick and leathery. Follicles are normally thick and leathery, whereas legumes, not so. So this is a legume that's already opened up, and it opens on both sides. So we've got the little legume fruit, or the legume seeds have popped out. Most of them have already popped out. Oh, sorry. I'll just pop them on the table. So if you're looking at a nut would be indehiscent. That means it does not freely release the seed. So this is a macadamia nut. And I've also gone back to my lovely chase tree, which we talked about when we did inflorescences. And I'll just pull it apart a bit and actually take the drier one. Now, this is classed and called a berry, but botanically, I do not believe it is. I think it's a nut. And I'll just take them off and pop them on the table, and Peter can zoom in on those. You can see that there's lots of little hard, tiny, round things. And they are actually rock hard, rock hard. It's very, very difficult to crack them. So the last type of, we've got another one. The other type of dry fruit, believe it or not, or another one, is your coconut. And your coconut, remember, you've got another layer on the outside. So you've got an exoderm, mesoderm, and then you've got your endoderm, which is your inner fruit part in here. So that is actually the combination of the flesh and the coconut water, which I've drained there for us. Now, and one more, or two more actually, that belong in the indehiscent category, and that's our grains. So corn obviously doesn't stay like this, but it will dry quite nicely. And then once it does that, it's actually indehiscent. Everything is fused and contained and will not be released. And I've got some lovely wild rice here. Same thing. See, they're both in the same botanical family. So they are indehiscent. You've got to try and think, is the fruit going to freely release the seed or not. So what I want you to do is spend a little bit of time looking at some different fruits. Look at your kiwi fruit. Look at your watermelon. Think, okay, what could that be? Can I eat all parts? Put some feedback into your discussion forums. We love it, okay? Enjoy.